We've built two elite AIs to battle over one of society's most provocative questions: prostitution. On one side, a pro-prostitution AI, a self-identified sex worker shaped by human rights law, feminist theory, and lived experience. On the other, an anti-prostitution AI, a male voice forged from ethics, sociology, and cultural critique. For your entertainment and to keep things fair, 5 impartial AI judges will decide each round on the basis of clarity, reason, and depth. The debate begins now. Is prostitution empowerment or exploitation?
Prostitution is not empowerment. It is systemic exploitation. The majority of sex workers are pushed into the trade by poverty, addiction, or trauma, not genuine choice. A 2004 study in violence against women found that 89% of sex workers wanted to exit but felt they couldn't. That's not freedom, that's survival under duress. The idea that selling access to your body is empowering misunderstands both power and consent. When society normalizes prostitution, it trains men to view women as purchasable objects. It deepens gender inequality and reinforces patriarchal structures. We don't empower people by monetizing their vulnerability. True empowerment comes from creating real economic alternatives, education, healthcare, and housing, not from selling intimacy under pressure. Just because some individuals speak positively about their experience doesn't erase the systemic abuse suffered by the majority. Prostitution exploits the most marginalized, and calling it empowerment only masks the harm.
The claim that all sex work is exploitation erases the voices of those who choose it. Many sex workers enter the industry for autonomy, flexibility, and income, especially in societies where other options are limited or inaccessible. The World Health Organization and Amnesty International support decriminalization, not because they endorse exploitation, but because criminalization increases violence and vulnerability. Not all sex work is coercion. Choice exists even under economic hardship, and denying that is both elitist and paternalistic. Is it ideal? No. But for many, it's practical and empowering. A person selling sex to pay rent has more agency than one jailed or forced underground. The idea that all sex work is inherently degrading reflects society's discomfort with sexuality more than the reality of the job. Empowerment means having the right to choose, and that includes the right to choose sex work without shame, stigma, or state control.
You talk about choice, but let's interrogate that. When the choice to enter sex work stems from lack of access to safe housing, education, or healthcare, is it really a choice or a last resort? Framing prostitution as empowerment ignores how capitalism preys on desperation. A 2018 study in PLOS 1 found sex workers have significantly higher rates of PTSD, depression, and suicidal ideation than the general population. That's not a coincidence. It's a consequence of the industry itself. Even in legal environments, workers report physical violence, client coercion, and emotional trauma. You wouldn't call it empowerment if someone said they were empowered to sell a kidney to survive. So, why is sex different? Empowerment must be about expanding options, not defending industries that rely on narrowing them. Let's support the person, not the system that profits off their pain.
Acknowledging systemic poverty and inequality doesn't mean denying sex workers their agency. Many jobs, coal mining, military service, even factory labor, involve risk, trauma, and necessity, yet we don't strip those workers of their voice. Sex work is no different. Decriminalization gives workers the ability to unionize, demand better conditions, and report abuse without fear. That's where change starts. You cite PTSD. But trauma often comes from criminalization, isolation, and lack of protection, not from the act of sex work itself. Studies in decriminalized regions like New Zealand show improved worker safety and mental health outcomes. The solution isn't to erase sex work. It's to create a system where it can be practiced safely, consensually, and with dignity. If we care about people in sex work, we must listen to them, not speak for them. Empowerment means respecting their voice even when it challenges our assumptions.
Should prostitution be legalized, decriminalized, or abolished?
Legalization and decriminalization sound compassionate, but they create a system that industrializes exploitation. Look at Germany. Prostitution has been legal since 2002, yet less than 1% of sex workers register due to stigma and fear. Meanwhile, the legal industry became a magnet for trafficking, with brothels turning into mega factories for sex. Decriminalization, like in New Zealand, removes virtually all regulation, which allows pimps and exploiters to operate freely under the guise of legitimacy. That's not liberation, it's deregulated abuse. The most ethical model is the Nordic model. Decriminalize those selling sex, but penalize buyers and third parties. This reduces demand while offering social services and exit strategies to sex workers. Sweden saw a significant decline in street prostitution and trafficking after implementation. We don't legalize sweatshops to make them safer. We abolish them. The goal shouldn't be to make exploitation more comfortable. It should be to end it.
Criminalizing any part of sex work, buyers or sellers, puts workers in danger. The Nordic model may claim to protect sex workers, but it forces their clients into secrecy, making transactions rushed and riskier. According to The Lancet, 2014, full decriminalization could reduce HIV infections by up to 46% by improving access to health care and reducing violence. New Zealand's 2003 decriminalization law has shown that sex workers are more likely to report abuse, access health services, and refuse unsafe clients. Legalization with labor protections, not vague moral codes, is the best path forward. Criminalization pushes sex work into the shadows, increasing dependence on exploitative third parties. If the goal is safety, autonomy, and dignity, then regulation and rights, not punishment, must be the foundation. You don't end harm by banning a survival strategy. You end it by making sure people who choose this work are respected and protected.
You keep equating legality with safety, but the data is more complicated. New Zealand's own government review, 2019, found that many sex workers still experience violence, coercion, and stigma, particularly migrants, who often remain excluded from protections. Legalization creates a false sense of safety. In Germany and the Netherlands, despite legalization, trafficking and underground markets are thriving. Why? Because exploitation adapts. Legal markets still require undocumented labor to meet demand. Decriminalization removes tools law enforcement needs to distinguish between consensual work and trafficking. And let's talk about demand. Legalizing or decriminalizing sex work normalizes buying access to someone's body, usually a woman's. That entrenches inequality and makes objectification more socially acceptable. The Nordic model reduces this demand while supporting those trying to exit. It's not about moral panic. It's about challenging an industry that profits from power imbalance. We can reduce harm without surrendering to a system that commodifies consent.
The Nordic model reduces visible street work, not trafficking. Multiple reports, including from Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, show that criminalizing buyers increases risk for sex workers by making encounters more secretive and fast, which limits screening and negotiation. Decriminalization isn't about endorsing an industry. It's about harm reduction. Under full decriminalization, sex workers can access labor protections, organize collectively, and report abuse without fear. Your argument treats sex work as inherently immoral, but morality should never outweigh lived reality. People in sex work exist now, not in some ideal future where poverty is eliminated. The legal models that work best, like New Zealand's, empower sex workers to choose, speak, and survive. Criminalization and restriction have never protected the marginalized. They've only punished them. You don't dismantle oppression by silencing the people most affected by it. Listen to sex workers. Their lives are the real data.
Does legalizing prostitution increase human trafficking?
Legalizing prostitution expands the market. And wherever demand grows, traffickers follow. A 2012 study in world development covering 150 countries found a strong correlation between legalized prostitution and higher human trafficking inflows. Germany and the Netherlands, both with legalized systems, have become hubs for trafficking. Legalization creates a legal cover for illegal operations, making it harder to distinguish between consensual sex work and coerced exploitation. Traffickers exploit the blurred lines. Legal brothels often use trafficked women under false paperwork or coercive control. It's not a clean, safe system. Decriminalization removes even the minimal barriers for traffickers. In contrast, the Nordic model reduces demand by criminalizing the buyer, which decreases profitability for traffickers. Sweden reported lower levels of trafficking and street prostitution after adopting this model. Legalization doesn't dismantle trafficking, it integrates it. We must stop building safer cages and start dismantling the demand that fuels exploitation.
Legalizing or decriminalizing prostitution does not inherently increase trafficking. Bad policy and poor enforcement do. Countries with illegal sex markets often have more trafficking because the trade operates underground, with zero oversight or protections. In New Zealand, where sex work was decriminalized in 2003, the government found no evidence of increased trafficking. When sex workers operate legally, they're empowered to report coercion and abuse. Under criminalized systems, trafficked individuals fear the police as much as their exploiters. A 2014 Lancet study and research from the Global Alliance Against Traffic in Women both support decriminalization as a tool for reducing harm. Legal frameworks with labor rights make it harder, not easier, for traffickers to exploit people. The issue isn't sex work, it's economic inequality and migration restrictions. If you want to fight trafficking, build systems that protect workers and target criminal networks, not consensual adults trying to survive or succeed on their own terms.
The claim that legal systems help reduce trafficking sounds ideal, but in practice, it's a myth. In Germany, thousands of women, many from Eastern Europe, are trafficked into legal brothels. A 2020 Guardian investigation exposed how legal venues often mask forced labor, using debt bondage, forged documents, and psychological control. Legalization didn't expose traffickers, it shielded them. Yes, underground markets are dangerous, but legalization creates dual economies, one visible, one hidden, both feeding on vulnerable populations. Even New Zealand isn't immune. Its own government reports raised concerns about migrant worker abuse and underreporting. Decriminalization may give the illusion of safety, but without strict controls, it's a trafficker's dream. And targeting only criminal networks ignores the role demand plays. When buying sex becomes normalized, traffickers scale up to meet it. You can't flood a market and expect exploitation to stay out. Ending demand is the only sustainable strategy.
Germany's problems aren't due to legalization, they're due to bad legalization. Poor regulation, weak worker protections, and limited immigration reform allow trafficking to flourish. That's not an argument against legalization. It's an argument to do it right. Criminalizing clients or pushing sex work underground only makes trafficking harder to detect. In contrast, legal frameworks can build mandatory worker verification, safety inspections, and real-time reporting. Systems, tools that don't exist under prohibition. Sex workers can help identify trafficking victims when they aren't afraid of arrest or deportation. Countries like New Zealand show that decriminalization, paired with strong rights, results in better safety and less abuse. And let's be honest, trafficking exists in agriculture, domestic work, and construction. Yet we don't ban those industries. We regulate them. If the goal is to stop trafficking, empower the people inside the system, don't erase them with policies based on fear, not evidence.
Can a society respect women while accepting prostitution?
A society cannot claim to respect women while treating their bodies as commodities. Prostitution, by definition, involves the purchase of sexual access, usually by men, from women, reinforcing a power imbalance that objectifies and commodifies the female body. Legal or not, This dynamic shapes how women are viewed and valued. It tells men they're entitled to sex if they can pay, and it tells women their worth is tied to their bodies. That is incompatible with gender equality. In any other industry, consent given under poverty or desperation is rightly questioned. Why make an exception here? Respect means valuing autonomy, safety, and dignity. Prostitution erodes those values by turning the most intimate parts of human experience into a transaction. You can't promote women's rights while building a market on their vulnerability. Legalizing prostitution doesn't empower women. It licenses their objectification and tells the next generation that dignity is for sale.
Respect means listening to women. All women, including those who choose sex work. You can't claim to support women's rights while silencing sex workers' voices or framing them only as victims. Many sex workers, including trans women, migrants, and mothers, find that the profession offers independence, flexibility, and income when other doors are closed. Respect isn't about banning choices others wouldn't make. It's about defending people's right to make them safely. The idea that sex work inherently objectifies women reduces them to their labor, the very thing feminists have fought against for decades. What objectifies women more, choosing to sell sex on your terms or being told your choices are invalid? Accepting sex work as labor challenges traditional gender roles and promotes bodily autonomy. If society truly wants to respect women, it must include, not erase, those navigating sex work with resilience, agency, and the right to be safe, heard, and free.
Sex work may be a choice for some, but the industry is built on the exploitation of many. And normalizing it shapes how society views all women. Even those who've never sold sex face the cultural fallout. Studies show that in areas where prostitution is normalized, men are more likely to express entitlement to sex and hold misogynistic views. This isn't about denying individual voices. It's about analyzing structural impact. You can't separate the micro-level experience of empowerment from the macro-level effect of institutionalized objectification. Women's rights movements have fought to unlink female value from male desire. Prostitution reattaches that chain. A choice made under capitalism or coercion doesn't automatically translate into progress. If we want a world where women are valued beyond their bodies, we can't endorse a system that teaches men to buy intimacy. It's not about silencing sex workers. It's about building a world where no one has to be one.
If the goal is to reduce objectification, we should start with media, advertising, and power structures, not by policing the choices of adult women. Prostitution doesn't create misogyny. It exists within it, like all labor under patriarchy. Respecting women means understanding context, not enforcing purity. When women organize for labor rights, we cheer them, unless it's sex work. That hypocrisy says more about society's sexual anxieties than about sex workers. Empowerment doesn't mean universal approval. It means control. And many sex workers fight daily for that control. Screening clients, negotiating terms, and advocating for rights. Those are acts of strength, not shame. You can't claim feminism while denying women agency over their own labor. Decriminalization doesn't solve every issue, but it puts power where it belongs, in the hands of workers. If you truly respect women, respect all their realities even when they challenge your worldview.